All right. So, welcome to the ASBB Plant Science today, and I'm here with Ian Street for the How Scientists Work series. Hi, Ian.
Hello.
How are you today?
Good.
All right. So, can you tell me a little bit about yourself and your background?
Hi, I'm Ian Street. I am a plant scientist at Dartmouth College. I'm a postdoc there in Eric Schaller's lab, and we work on plant hormones, mostly cytokinin and ethylene, and therefore also auxin. And my primary project is working on how those hormones operate during primary root development.
All right. So, can you tell me one word that describes your work?
Reflective.
Reflective.
Yes, I'm somebody who likes to think about what I'm doing in every next step and really try to capture as big of a picture of whatever I'm working on as I can until I actually do something. Like, I like to have the angles. I like to know things before I step in and do them, which is not always a great thing, I'll be honest, but
Fabulous.
It's just my habit.
All right. So, what's your favorite non-Arabidopsis plant?
So, no question, Coast Redwood of California.
Fabulous. Have you seen them?
Yes, I have. I've been to Jedediah Smith National Park, where they were filming Return of the Jedi.
Awesome.
If you don't know, that's Endor.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So, what's one interesting project that you're working on lately?
Yeah. So the primary project that I've been working on is the role that cytokinin and auxin and ethylene play in primary root development, and specifically how a plant differentiates, between how does it know how to temper its rate of growth, basically, and how do the cells of the root, because they're organized in files, how do they communicate with each other? Not only are they organized in files, but then there's also, from the root tip back to the apex, there has to be communication between all the plant cells, and the plant hormones are involved in that. And my project is involved in figuring out what the hormones do, what those three hormones do, cytokinin, ethylene, and auxin, to regulate that process.
Okay.
And they all do talk to each other.
All right. So, myself, not an expert in that, what would you like myself or possibly the general public to know about your work? How do you relate that to the greater community?
Good. Sure.
Yeah.
So this is very much a project. It's basic research with the ultimate goal of, plant growth hormones that occur just naturally in the plant, very much affect almost everything about how a plant grows and develops and how it looks, and how it forages for resources, how it responds to stress. And knowing how these hormones talk to each other is going to matter for agriculture and food development, and even possibly environmental management, if you know how to manipulate hormones in some way to make the plant grow this way instead of that way. So that's the ultimate application.
Fabulous. Very cool. So, what do you spend your time thinking about that's not your next proposal, or maybe describes your broader impacts?
So I write a blog called The Quiet Branches at thequietbranches.com.
Nice.
And about plant science. And I call it The Quiet Branches because I think plants are, plant blindness is a thing in the world that people plants are a medium that people walk through and don't really acknowledge very often, even though we are 100% dependent upon them. And so on the blog, my goal is to bring the stories of plant science and what's going on inside the plant, the molecular biology, the physiology, all of that, what plants do in the world. Even though they don't seem to be, they are behaving. They are doing things all the time. And so that's what I spend a lot of time thinking about, is what's my next story and how can I tell it in a relatable way. My level for the blog is always to shoot for an undergraduate level. An undergraduate should be able to understand my blog, and hopefully more people will get something out of that.
All right.
Also.
So, is it targeting specifically undergraduates, or that kind of understanding?
Even that's kind of understanding. My target is anyone who my target is anyone and everyone potentially, but specifically, the best compliment I've ever gotten is professors telling me that they shared a blog post of mine with their students.
Nice.
So, and that's the level I've really decided to focus on a lot more. It's okay, that's cool. I don't specifically seek out professors to share my work with. Like I share my blog posts on Twitter, and if whoever picks them up can take them wherever they like.
Nice.
But,
so what's the best thing that you've ever learned?
the best thing I ever learned is the growth mindset. And
can you tell me a little bit more about that?
So this is work by Carol Dweck. Like, I'm such a nerd knowing all these things. But basically it's... This
is a nerd out zone.
Right, exactly.
So you're good to go.
So yeah, so the growth mindset is the idea that you, like, knowledge, where you are right now is not fixed in time and space, and your level of understanding is not fixed, that you can learn new things. Like at any time in your life, basically.
Right.
But like this is particularly applicable to education and science, where like, you know, sort of a big barrier is adopting new techniques and learning new things in the lab. And like scientists tend to be very perfectionistic and very like, well, I have to get it right the first time, every time. The growth mindset is almost the opposite of that, where like, you know, it is learning by trial and error, which is what we do. And it's not intuitive at all for some reason for a lot of scientists. And like that's the best thing that I've learned in the last 5 years.
This is really great. So personally, how do you apply that to yourself?
So
because it seems like
this has mostly come up in the context of like, you know, like I wanted to start a blog. I just did it. I started a blog and like learned how to do that. And I'm learning all the time, like new ways of sharing, new ways of doing, you know, sharing things on social media, better writing, how to source images, like, you know, where can I find images, and also in like creating graphics on my own, like it's so it's all that, and like also like learning R and more coding stuff that I want to learn, and it's kind of frustrating sometimes, and the computer doesn't do what you want it to do, and you don't know why. But like, you know, the fixed mindset, my old self, perfectionist self would have just thrown my hands and like, this is impossible. Like I can't, I'm not a person who understands this. The growth mindset is you understand it, but or you don't understand it now, but you can learn, like push through the hard part.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
All right, so going back to your podcast a little bit, or excuse me, the blog. So using the growth mindset, what was one of the things that you would encourage other potential bloggers to look at? What would be the one thing that you would want to put in a box and give to them? So
I would say like one of the best things, like, so people seem to be really hesitant to do it. And so like the biggest thing I would say, just get started. And like the content doesn't necessarily matter as much at first, as much as getting down words on a page. Like if you have any ideas of what to write about, just put it down. Like even if it's not science related at first, like, cause like my first blog was just my personal blog where I just put stuff I was thinking about basically, and stuff that was large in my life, until I started the plant science blog. And like, okay, well, I'm just going to start this and start writing about plant science and follow my own curiosity, right? Like that's the thing I always go with, like, where is my curiosity leading me? Like, so like, you know, my most recent post was sort of talking about Brexit, but then also like the story I heard about the lemon trade basically is responsible for the Italian mafia. Sicilian mafia specifically. Because the UK got lemons from Sicily where they're not native, and the mafia started as basically suppliers to like doing the logistics of the lemon trade, getting lemons from the farm to the port and digging the irrigation ditches and all of that. So yeah, and you're just like, wow, that's a weird plant connection of how plants really have affected our lives. Like, because the mafia obviously has branched out since you know they started in Sicily. So yeah, so things like that, like it's like, wow, that is a fascinating story from history.
All right.
And that's my favorite thing to do on the blog, by the way, is go back to history and jump forward.
Cool. Ian, thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure talking with you today. So this is the ASPB Plant Science Today, How Plant Scientists Work. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.